Zero.
Sunday Leftovers. November 20th edition, right? Something like that. Yeah. So here we are.
Oh my goodness.
I know, right? You haven't done your Christmas shopping. It's too late. It's too late for you.
Too late for me.
Too late for you.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You know, this last couple of years feels like it didn't happen. I mean, it's like
it's just gone. Yeah.
2020. I'm still in 2020.
Oh, please don't. Let's not do 2020 over again.
No. Yeah. Not over again. Anyways, but
went by quick. They say hey Linda, they say that the days fly by. No, they say the days drag on, but the years fly by. In other words, the days seem like they last forever. Years they disappear.
Yeah, it feels like that. But anyways.
Well, here we are. We're coming up on Advent, so final Sunday of the church calendar, which for some of us is still new. I consistently hear from our folks that they appreciate the explanation of the lectionary in the church calendar. Mm-hmm. And I guess if you grew up with it, maybe it's meaningless to you and it feels like a constraint, but to me, it still feels delightful. But of all the Sundays of the church calendar, the one I struggle with the most is Christ the King Sunday, because Christ was no king. And it just feels, you know what it feels like? That's it. We tripped the heresy meter and now we lost him. It would take a lot to lose you.
We'll take a lot.
That's right. Anyway.
That's right.
But Christ the King Sunday always reminds me of, it's like a neighborhood in Texas where there's beautiful trees in a meadow and they knock it all down to build houses and then they call it the neighborhood Beautiful Meadow. And it's like, this has nothing to do with that.
The woods.
Right. Nothing but words. So Christ the King Sunday, had a lot of fun with this. Mostly because Jesus accepted no such titles. And in fact, I would argue all the time that kingdom wasn't even part of his language, not the way we hear it. Mm-hmm. But that never stopped us from forcing him into that mold. And one of the things I said on Sunday that I feel pretty deeply.
But one of the good things about be forced to face these verses, Bible verses, now with a different perspective, it makes us look deeper and rediscover stuff. Yeah. So I think it's a great exercise.
So this will be controversial on a Tuesday morning, maybe not, but we've always rummaged through the bones of the memories of Jesus, and we've always constructed whatever we needed. So in times in history when we desperately need someone to inspire us, someone to speak on our behalf, someone to lead us, when we need someone to oppress our oppressors or show violence to those who show, you know what I'm saying? When we need an enemy of our enemies, we always construct a king out of Jesus. And a warrior, a king, all the things. And it's funny to me because it's very clear in his teachings that he accepts no such thing, that it never stopped us before. And a couple of things I said on Sunday. The institutional church has been violently retrofitting Jesus into all sorts of self-serving roles since he left us. We will make of Jesus whatever we need to make of Jesus in order to feel better about our world.
That's right.
And I don't want to say that in such a way that says shame on us, so much as if we're honest, we build these images of God. And the word that you wrote a book about, I think still works in the literary concept, is a metaphor. It's only a metaphor.
It is.
Jesus left nothing behind him that speaks to his kingship. He was murdered like a revolutionary, not a king. And no matter what we do of that memory, no matter what we feel that we need, Jesus will never be the oppressor of our oppressors. Now here's the point that I think has been kicking around in my head since Sunday. If what we need from our deity or our king or our prototype, our hero, if what we need is violence against the violent, we will be disappointed. If what we need is someone to be more powerful than the earthly power, then we're going to miss it. We're going to miss it because if you were with me on Sunday, you would know, and if those of you who watch this because you missed a Sunday and you try to use Cliff Notes to catch up, this won't work this week. Anyway, you got to go back and hear the sermon. But if we try to force Jesus into conventional ideas of king, it will not work. But here's what does work. Something happened on that hill called the Skull that undid power. Something happened that rewrote the book on love. And to that degree, if we can look at it again through that lens, crown this one king. Because nothing has ever been said. No, let me not say that. Because what was said that day was said so profoundly. It's enough for me to stay in the shadow of those words as best I can tell forever because of the power. Now, has love said other things? Have there been other versions of authority and God's revelation that are also deeply meaningful? Of course. But in our story, that scene from Luke 23, where Jesus literally is concerned about the person to his left as he breathes his last, or to his right.
Right.
I don't think you can say anything more regal or royal or anything more profound than that. That's where I'm at.
And that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Talking about, excuse me, that I'm taking some part of the things you said at the beginning. It's true. All the time, we try to reimagine Jesus, reimagine God according to our needs.
Yeah.
And believe me, oftentimes I'm up to that. I mean, it's part of our human nature.
Right.
But we need to recognize when our imagination, when our
Very
expectations are against to the core of the message, because we rethink also about. We rethink the figure of Jesus for our lives, but with that understanding that is temporary, understanding that is limited by your imagination, probably by my imagination, by our context. What I struggle the most is when people declare things about Jesus, about God. This is it.
Yeah, as if this is the final thing.
It will be this.
Right.
Forever.
Yeah.
It was for them. It is for me. It will be for the next 50 generations.
Yeah.
That
doesn't sit well. So here's the thing that you're talking about. There must be a certain level of humility with our metaphors.
That's right.
That's right. What I mean by that is, as deeply as I go down inside a story of Jesus as the one who accepted all and loved all, as deeply as I go down in the metaphors of paradise and heaven and all the things that I hold dear, I can only go down to them, down in those metaphors, honestly, if I also am willing to say, but this isn't the only thing that was ever revealed. So no metaphor is final, right?
No metaphor.
Like they say, no feeling is final.
Super temporary.
Rilke wrote, no feeling is final. The best we can do linguistically to encapsulate a moment always has limitations built in. It helps as well as it hinders, right? So I guess if you were to say, just thinking about this in terms of our philosophy of theology or scripture or whatever, we're just honest about what a metaphor is. It's super helpful and it's deeply needed, and it's also very temporary. This image of, go back into the Middle Ages and look at how the church depicted Jesus. Massive, big pecs, big forearms, on a horse, this victorious king, this one who, of course that's what they needed, and that runs really cross-grained to other metaphors, like Jesus the shepherd, right? Mm-hmm. The one who's willing to make a bad business decision and leave 99 units behind to recover one lost unit.
Right.
So this is what ANC is about. We are honest with our metaphors. They are metaphors. That does not mean they're not sacred. That does not mean they don't carry meaning. Of course they do, but they must be humble.
Sometimes we underestimate the power of metaphors. Sometimes we think there's a lot of people.
Tell me more about that.
There's a lot of people that they want just to take everything literally. Like this is, and they totally lost the power of the metaphor. If I said to my wife, correct me if I mistranslate this.
Okay.
But if I said to my wife, okay, you stole my heart, so she would be very stupid, and other people would be very stupid if they think
literally
she
took your heart,
ripped my chest and took my heart.
Right.
and run away.
Yeah.
And so metaphors are powerful.
Yeah.
Because appeal to our imagination.
Right.
And that creates a deepest meaning in our minds.
Right.
To the very core of our brains.
Right. So when we say metaphor, we don't say it's simply myth.
It's super important.
It's deeply woven into our neuropathology. It's woven into our biomechanics. It's woven into the accumulation of our evolutionary sort of way we make meaning in the world. So don't mishear us. We're not saying, when we say metaphor, we're not saying it's less than true. We're saying
maybe we are talking about something that is even beyond
objective.
The words.
Exactly.
It's
I think that's right. And I think that really gets to who we are.
When we say to someone, "I love you with all my heart," we're not talking about the muscle, and the power that our muscle has. So if I have a heart disease, I love you less. No. We are talking about something deeper than that.
Right.
It's a meta language.
Yes.
And it's super powerful.
So I think we have to get ready now because we're going into the season of Advent.
Yes.
And this is when our metaphors, we hold them so sacred you can't touch them, right?
Yeah, right.
And somehow this year we're going to have to do this with what is for us a new understanding, a new humility around the text. We're going to go deep into season 1, which is Jewish, and we're going to begin to take some of the writings and tease them forward in the assumption that these are referring to Jesus, who is our season 2 protagonist. But we're going to have to do this with a new level of humility and we're going to do it built on exactly what we're talking about. Metaphors are temporary ways of making meaning that are sacred and transcendent, but we have to hold them loosely because you do not fully encapsulate the object with whatever you use to describe it. Assume that it's fully revealed is to do what Rob said years ago. It would be like painting the final depiction of Elvis and saying there can be no more Elvis paintings, and the reality is everyone knows that that's what in Texas we call horse feathers. Now, my dearly beloved boss just chimed in. I know you're out there, Laura. Dora, don't forget us. In Texas, we have great linguistic things like horse feathers. I know they don't have those in Arkansas, and I know horses don't have feathers. It's our way of saying balderdash, right? But anyway, we're going to begin to tease. We love you, Laura. We're going to miss you so much. Laura has been elected bishop. And we knew this day was coming.
It's a blessing for her. It's a blessing for the church.
I don't know if it's a blessing for her. It's a real great blessing for Arkansas. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of work for her.
It's a challenge. Yeah. Anyways,
we're gonna miss you. Anyway, all that to say, we're serious about this. There is a way to read the accumulated knowledge of faithful people who wrote about the events of God and Christ and history and all things. There is a way to read these with a humble approach to your metaphor that can say, this moves me to my core, and I'm willing to be moved by the metaphor that moves you too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
This is how we can sit in communion. I wouldn't even call it conversation with Rabbi Blumhoff. We can sit in communion, soul communion, because I don't need to topple his metaphors. His metaphors are profound.
Yes.
I hold mine dear as well. So we're going to begin to look at God made flesh. And what we're really going to begin to look at as we move forward in the next little bit, we're going to begin to look at this cry from the material world, which can be encapsulated in 3 words: heaven come down.
Yeah, that's
heaven come down.
Okay, that's
where we're going.
That's the title of this entire Advent series.
That's where we're going.
Heaven come down.
Now,
and we will talk about.
We're going to talk about. We're going to go into hope and love and joy and peace, and we're going to hear from Trey, and we're going to hear from our deeply beloved Jen. Jen will be later in the series, but she doesn't share all that often. She's very busy, but when she does, it's always gold. But we're going to go into this concept of heaven come down. Now, heaven is a metaphor, so be forewarned. What we mean when we say heaven come down is the very same reality that first piercing cry of an infant boy born to a very poor peasant couple on the margin of empire. Heaven come down, heaven came down. So it's not as if we're saying we want something. Here's the bottom line. It's not as if we're saying we want God to do something that's never been done. What we're saying is we want a deeper awareness of what God has always been doing. You see that?
I like it.
Okay. Hold me to that. That's where we got to go. We're going to have some fun.
I like it.
All right.
That's we'll start not next week, this week. next Sunday.
Already deep into it. Yep. So we just that great holiday. Hey,
Adios.
Look at this guy. Look at this guy. It's been a cameo. Yeah. Good to see you, bro. We got to get past this great American holiday that happens on Friday this week called Native American Heritage Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is preceded by a lesser holiday called Thanksgiving. And now here comes the hate mail. We're going to celebrate this week with fish and wild rice and celebrate, in my family, the profound understanding of God in the material world that is preserved within the Native American culture.
Right.
We'll also have a little turkey, watch a little football. We got to get through that, and then we begin Advent 1. And this year we're going to focus really on how this story sits in the context of our family. Mm-hmm. Now, by family, I don't mean if you're single that you're unfamilied. I mean those you choose to do relationship. For some of us, it's blood related. For some of us, it's not. But we're going to locate the Christmas story deep back into the family unit. And we're going to get our heads around this in a new and fresh way. That's the challenge in the church calendar, is that it's the same symbol every year, but with new layers of meaning. And the reason it works is because we're different people. We're different people. I do not read the Old Testament the same now as I ever did. I don't look at it the same way. There's a whole nother perspective and a whole nother angle that now feels urgent and important. And so we're going to look at it again. So that's what you can expect from us. We got 16 minutes in. Any burning questions? I don't know about questions. We never really interact with questions.
But all the time it's good to read all of the comments. Yeah. And we have the chance to interact later with all of these comments.
And we stick with this. We wonder about doing this, but we stick with this because a few of you have mentioned that this is meaningful to you throughout your week, mostly those of you who live out of town. And so we're happy to do it because it just feels natural.
And maybe people doesn't realize that this is our, it's not the secret weapon, but it's like we say a lot of stuff on Sunday, on Tuesday morning that we don't say Sunday morning.
And also, you know what else happens?
This is great.
This is a very significant piece of sermon prep for next week for me. Because what we do when we sit here, before this camera goes live, we sit here and we discuss next week's text. And I think this is what I remember seminary professors when I was back in school telling me, that eventually your sermon preparation will become a series of intentional conversations. So you'll be able to get rid of several $1,000s worth of commentaries. And you'll be able to relocate that. Barbara Brown Taylor wrote many years ago that her favorite way to prepare for the sermon is to read the text and then go garden. Because if it doesn't make sense when you got your hands in the carrots, then probably doesn't make enough sense. But anyway, this has become a very significant part of weekly sermon prep for me as well. Mostly because of the quality of your ideas. Because you drop little seeds around,
don't believe that.
Little nuggets. This one here is right up here too. This one's going to be burnt at the stake. That's not even funny. That's so morbid on so many levels. Yes. All right. Okay. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too.
Our prayers and thoughts are with those in Colorado Springs.
Right.
Club Q happened again. Every wound to the LGBT community is a wound to us.
Yeah. When we raise our voices towards the LGBTQ community, it's because we need to create safe places for our brothers and sisters in that community and for everybody in that community.
Yeah. And the trauma that comes from shootings in nightclubs where you feel safe in cities like Colorado Springs. See, the reason they gather in places where they feel safe is because they probably don't in the places that most of us would feel safe. And so when that would be like somebody walking into your home, into your bedroom and shooting you in your bed. Like that's a place that you don't, right? Yeah. So it's a cycle that keeps repeating in our violent culture, and it breaks our heart. So our thoughts
we need to raise our voices and defend the people that during these times they are feeling so unsafe in so many places. Yeah. Because if something like that could happen in a safe place,
then there's what that says anywhere. Is that there's nowhere that they're safe. Oops, the dog in the camera. No problem.
So
then that means there's no place that they're safe, and that breaks my heart.
That's so terrible.
Yeah. So thoughts and prayers with you on that. All right.
Okay.